Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends at Mountain Rose Herbs. The folks at Mountain Rose Herbs are committed to providing us herbalists with high-quality, organic, and sustainable herbs, spices, essential oils, bulk ingredients, and much more. But quality isn't the only thing they're passionate about. They consider the environmental and social impact of every business decision they make, and are dedicated to keeping their business practices sustainable and ethical from start to finish. To Mountain Rose Herbs, people, plants, and planet are more important than profit. And HerbRally Podcast listeners can get 15% off their order at mountainroseherbs.com using coupon code 22RALLY15. That's 22RALLY15, all one word. So a huge thanks to Mountain Rose Herbs for sponsoring the podcast, and don't forget to use coupon code 22RALLY15 to get 15% off your next order. Now on to the show. Enjoy. A little bit of housekeeping before we get into the show. The content in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to cure, diagnose, treat, or prevent any disease. This information has not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. We are not doctors, nor do we play one on the internet. Please seek advice from a qualified healthcare professional. Okay, MC Calico, take it away.
Yeah. Smoking herbal blends. We need some mullein and some kush, my brethren. While listening to HerbRally Podcast again. Herbalism at its finest with Mason Hutchinson. Yeah.
This is part 2, the flower motif featuring rose. Hello again. My name is Maria Christodoulou, and I'm a clinical herbalist exploring the wisdom and whimsy of ancient Greek herbal medicine. This session is the second in a 3-part series that explores the herbal motifs of one leaf, one flower, and one fruit in the ancient Mediterranean region. Today we will be exploring the flower motif featuring our beloved rose. If Zeus chose us a queen of the flowers in his mirth, he would call to the rose and would royally crown it. For the rose, ho, the rose, is the grace of the earth, is the light of the plants that are growing upon it. For the rose, ho, the rose, is the eye of the flowers, the blush of the meadows that feel themselves fair, the lightning of beauty that strikes through the bowers on pale lovers who sit in the glow unaware. Ho, the rose breathes of love. Ho, the rose lifts the cup to the red lips of Aphrodite, invoked for a guest. Ho, the rose, having curled its sweet leaves for the world, takes delight in the motion its petals keep up, as they laughed to the wind as it laughs from the west. This is a poem called Song of the Rose, and it may have been written by a 5th century Greek writer named Achilles Tatius, or by Sappho, a celebrated ancient Greek lyric poet who lived between the 7th and 6th centuries BCE. Sappho, which is spelled Sappho and pronounced Sappho, is especially noted for her poetry, as she is one of the very few women writers from ancient Greece. She lived on the island of Lesbos in Greece, and has been referred to as the 10th muse and the poetess, considered one of the greatest poets of her time. The fact that either she or Achilles may have written this poem extolling the virtues of rose indicates the important role of the flower more than 3,000 years ago. While the rose was called Queen of the Flowers in ancient Greece, we can all agree today that the rose is a magnificent flower celebrated for her luscious aromatic scent, vibrant colors, and seductive nature. In ancient Greece and Rome, rose was a sacred plant associated with Aphrodite and Venus, the goddess of love, beauty, passion, fertility, and sexual pleasure. In ancient Greece, she was created by the severed genitals of Uranos, or heaven, when they were thrown into the sea by Kronos, the personification of time. Her name means foam arisen, and she emerges from the sea foam as a fully formed woman. White roses also arose from this sea foam, which came to represent purity and chastity. The writer Plutarch later writes that all roses began as pure white, until Aphrodite's blood stained them all. There are several Greek myths with Aphrodite and her rose. One version describes how Adonis, the lover of Aphrodite, was out hunting when he was mortally wounded by a wild boar. Aphrodite cried over his dying body, mixing her tears with his blood. With the blend of his blood and her tears, a fragrant red rose grew from the earth. Another myth describes Aphrodite accidentally scratching herself on a thorn of a white rose bush as she was running to be with Adonis after his wild boar accident. It was then that her blood eternally stained the flowers to a deep, sensual red that we know today. There are countless artworks depicting these myths. A painting from the 1600s of Aphrodite embracing her lover is displayed at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. A sculpture of Adonis and his killer wild boar stands in the State Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg. And a terracotta vase from 390 BCE depicts an image of Aphrodite and her lover at the J. Paul Getty Museum in California. There are probably pieces of artwork depicting the famed couple at a museum near you. In yet another myth, the rose was created by Flora, the goddess of flowers. Several gods bestowed upon the flower a special power. Aphrodite its beauty, Dionysus, the god of wine and pleasure, its sweet scent, Apollo, the god of the sun and healing, its bloom, and Mars, the god of war, its thorn to protect. As one of Aphrodite's sacred plants, rose represented the beauty and sensual nature of the heavenly and earthly worlds, the union between immortals and mortals. The flower was the embodiment of love, sexual joy, intimacy, and pleasure, and appeared countless times in ancient texts. The epic poet Homer describes the goddess of sunrise as rosy-fingered dawn. A parchment fragment from the 7th century BCE reads, Aphrodite clothed herself with garments which the Charites, or Graces, and Horai, seasons, had made for her and dyed in flowers of spring, such flowers as the Horai wear, in crocus and hyacinth and flourishing violet, and the rose's lovely bloom, so sweet and delicious, and heavenly buds, the flowers of the narcissus and lily. In such perfumed garments is Aphrodite clothed at all seasons. Imagine today if we clothed ourselves in the petals of spring, and what joy that would bring us. In ancient Greece and Rome, there are stories of dinner guests, victorious athletes, and newlyweds being showered by an avalanche of rose petals. In these contexts, roses also represented wealth and status. In ancient Rome, if a rose was placed on the table during a feast, guests knew that something confidential would be shared, and that they would be honoring Harpocrates, the god of silence and secrets.
Pardon the interruption, the show will be back on shortly. People will sometimes say, Mason, how can I support you in your work? There is so much free content on HerbRally, and it'd be nice to give back somehow. I used to say, please rank and review the show. It means the world to us, which is still great. Please rank and review in your podcast player of choice. But now I'd say becoming an HerbRally Schoolhouse member is one of the best ways you can support our small family herbal business. If you've ever heard of Patreon, it's kind of like that. Basically, you're directly supporting our work by spending $10 a month and becoming a member of the HerbRally Schoolhouse, or patron, if you will. Membership includes exclusive content, and we release new content each week. And the library of available content just keeps growing over time with a variety of teachers and classes, which means the Schoolhouse just keeps offering more, adding more value to you as you continue on your herbalist journey. There's also a bunch of discounts for cool herbal businesses in there as well, plus some other features to the membership. So, if you'd like to check it out and get your first 30 days for free, you can use coupon code PODCAST when you register at herbrally.com/schoolhouse. Again, that's herbrally.com/schoolhouse and use coupon code PODCAST at checkout to get your first 30 days for free. Thanks so much for your time and support. Now back to the show.
Roman nobility established large public rose gardens in the south of Rome to have greater access to their beauty, and the cultivation of roses was a good source of income for many Romans. At bridal processions, drinking parties, and orgies, the ancients wore garlands of rose, sometimes paired with violets. Garlands were a symbol of fertility and the power of nature. The laws of Solon in 6th century ancient Greece recommended that girls who were no longer virgins be prohibited from wearing rose garlands, perhaps a nod to the pure roses born from the sea alongside Aphrodite. In ancient Egypt, roses were flowers of Isis, the goddess of love. Cleopatra, the queen of Egypt in the 1st century BCE, is said to have used rose water in her bath and would fill her room with rose petals when she expected her lover Mark Antony to visit in order to intoxicate him with the scent. In the ancient Greek romance novel called Daphnis and Chloe, Daphnis laments, "What has Chloe's kiss done to me? Her lips are more tender than roses, her mouth is sweeter than a honeycomb, but her kiss is sharper than the sting of a bee. My pulse beats high, my heart leaps, and my soul melts, and yet I wish to kiss again. O bitter victory, O strange disease, the name of which I cannot even tell." The agony of love is represented by the very essence of the rose, whose very thorns remind us of the inescapable pain we feel when we love anything. As one Roman writer said, "Shall I pick rude thorns without adorning petals, harvesting only troubles and never beauty?" The thorns on roses represented hardship and sorrow, and emotions we bear when we are hurt by love. Later, in Christian religious symbols, rose thorns represented sin. The Virgin Mary was associated with the thornless rose, free from the original sins of Adam and Eve. Roses were also the connection with the afterlife. In ancient Greece, Rome, and Egypt, roses were woven into funerary wreaths. Remnants of rose petals have been found in ancient Egyptian tombs and in the materials binding mummies. In Homer's epic poem The Iliad, Aphrodite uses the immortal oil of the rose to anoint and protect the dead body of Hector, the hero of the Trojan War, as he entered the afterlife. Every spring, the ancient Romans celebrated a rose festival called Rosalia, which took place usually in May. This was also a time when the deceased were honored, and roses and other flowers were placed at their burial sites. Returning to the love poetry of Sappho, she laments the death of a lover. "Remember the many garlands of violets and roses I placed next to you, and the many flower necklaces I weaved around your soft skin and spread bountiful myrrh?" The flower was both a physical and emotional expression of love and intimacy. Roses were also a symbol of youth and the stage of life blooming into adulthood. It was especially tragic when a young girl or boy died an untimely death, a comparison made with a budding rose cut down in spring. One Roman epitaph reads, "Here lies Optatus, a child ennobled by devotion. I pray that his ashes may be violets and roses, and I ask that the earth, who is his mother now, be light upon him, for the boy's life was a burden to no one." In daily life in Greece, a folk dance song was sung at both public and private occasions. One chorus member sang out asking where the three plants are, rose, violet, and sage. And another chorus member affirms, "They are here." And then the party would dance. Rose was infused into oils, ointments, and lotions, often applied after bathing. Necklaces were made out of roses to dull the unsavory scent of sweat, as the herbalist Dioscorides writes. Aristotle wrote about the powerful scent of rose in its ability to remain unchanged. He has asked, "Why is it that many ointments acquire an unpleasant odor when mixed with sweat, while others become more fragrant, and still others unchanged? There exist some aromas which emit a pleasant scent, but the scent weakens if their leaves are rubbed or dried, as with violet, while other scents remain unchanged, as with the rose." He also writes that the scent of the rose always causes pleasure. In medicine, dried rose petals were known for their astringency and were boiled in wine to treat headaches, diarrhea, and conditions of the eyes, ears, and gums. The botanist Theophrastus recommended that one stands windward while gathering the fruit of the wild rose to avoid danger to the eyes, perhaps a practice with magico-spiritual meaning. Rose was a quintessential symbol of the mysteries of love, an expression of poetry found in nature, a divine and floral force. As we have seen in antiquity, the flowers were woven into celebrations and customs, and applied in body care products and as medicine. They represented the eternal power of nature to regenerate with an inexhaustible force, in the same way that love is eternal and can regenerate time and time again. Even today, these same themes exist around the rose. A bouquet of red roses presented on Valentine's Day, or rose petals strewn down the wedding aisle. Rose is the eternal, immortal, divine symbol of love, which is the most human emotion of the heart. And being both divine and human, we will endlessly strive to feel it. Our existential purpose is to search for someone to love, to do something we love, and to be a source of love. To end our ancient journey with the eternal rose, we ask, "Where are my roses? Where are my violets? And where is my fine parsley?" And in reply, the ancient Greek chorus will sing, "Here are your roses, here are your violets, and here is your fine parsley." Thanks for joining me in this 3-part series exploring herbal motifs in the ancient Mediterranean. While I explored the sensual and aromatic nature of the divine rose in this session, join me for the next and final session in which I go down into the underworld to explore the myths of the juicy pomegranate fruit. Of course, for other adventures through antiquity, you can join me at thegreekherbalist.com. Thank you.
And that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the HerbRally Podcast. If you'd like to hear more from us here at HerbRally, we now have a text message community, believe it or not. Basically, it's just updates from us. We send about 1 to 7 texts per week, notifying you about new events, videos, courses, podcasts. You get the idea. It's pretty much like our email newsletter, just in text form. So if you'd like to receive text messages from HerbRally, just text JOIN, that's JOIN, to the number 541-256-2895. Again, that's JOIN to number 541-256-2895. And to stop receiving texts, that's easy too. Just text STOP to the same number. It'll opt you out immediately. Okay, thanks again for listening. Have a great rest of your day.